So it's been 1 hour since we put the dough into the oven. We'll pull it out here. You might notice I've also had transferred the rest of my starter that was in that bowl, in that bowl into the mason jar. I added a little bit of water and a little bit of flour in there again, 50-50 to let it rise a bit, because I like to have about half a jar at least, or just above half a jar for my next bake. So after that's been rising for about an hour, I'm going to close that up and put that in the fridge in a minute. Alright, so if you have a look here now, you look inside the bowl, you see it doesn't look much different than what it did before, but you'll notice that it's actually quite tacky and gooey, which is exactly how we want it. We don't have any sort of dry spots along the top of it or anything like that. Now what we'll do is we're going to add the salt and the oil. Now for a 900 gram loaf, I like to use 9 grams of salt. So because we've got two 900 gram loaves here, it's 1800 grams, so it's 18 grams of salt that we're going to need. So I'm just going to measure that out. 18 grams, I use pink Himalayan salt. It doesn't really matter what you use. Try and use non-iodized salt. That's probably the best. All right, 18 grams we want. 15. This scale is not the best and the most accurate when it comes to small grams. And basically just sprinkle that across the top. And then we put the oil in. I use the cold pressed sunflower oil. I use for each loaf about 2 tops of oil, so I'll need 4 in this case because I'm doubling up again. 4, and just pour that in over the top. This gets really messy. And then we have to dry it off. Clean it up. So we don't leave anything on the bench. Right. As you can see, it's just basically been thrown in over the top. And then I'll use again the pot scraper, or the bowl scraper, to basically just fold this in. So if you have a look, I'm just basically bringing it in from the side, and I will do that like that. And because it's been in the oven with the light on, it actually feels a little bit warm at the moment as well. So I'm just trying to incorporate all of this. We're by no means done with the folding, but we do that. And basically now, once that's kind of folded in like that, I'm just going to turn that out onto the bench. I cleaned down the bench just before. And scrape out any remnants out of the bowl, put it in there. And my hands are a little bit oily, but that's fine. It's supposed to be oily. So now we're going to go into our stretch and fold. I'm going to turn my alarm on here to go for 10 minutes. And basically the stretch and fold, you can see it's sort of wet and shaggy. But basically you just start doing this. You grab it at one end, slap it down and fold it. And pretty much straight away, you can already feel it kind of drying out. And you can see when you pull it, it's actually really, it just pulls apart. And that's fine right now, because that'll start strengthening up. That's what you're trying to do, is strengthen the gluten in there. Now we'll probably go and speed through this, but I'll stop every now and then when I have to sort of show you where it's at. All right. Okay, so this is after about 50 flips and folds that we've got. You can see it's still a little bit tacky, but it's already sort of feeling a little bit drier and more solid. At this point, I scrape everything off the bench again, and I keep going. About every 50 folds, I'll stop, I'll scrape, and I'll sort of show you what the consistency is like. Okay, this is after about 100 now, so 2 times 50. You can see it's not as sticky as it was anymore, and it actually stays quite. Now, if I leave it on the bench, it'll still stick, but keeping it moving, of course, makes it easy to pick up. So again, I'll just scrape it down, and I'll keep going. So this is again 150 folds that I've done now, and you can see it's still a little bit tacky, and it's actually feeling quite strong. And you can see it's no longer sort of falling apart. It's getting to be quite stretchy. And also when it starts getting that stretchy, you can actually slap it and really pull it a lot, because when you pull it, that's when you're actually getting the strength, right? So you can see I'm slapping it and pulling it back as well to sort of get that strength in. So that's 200 folds now. It's again quite tight, but it's starting to loosen up, and it goes through sort of periods of being tighter and looser and tighter and looser. I try to go about 400 to 500 folds. 400 gives me about 10 minutes. There's only 3 minutes to go. I'm only 200 in at the moment. So we'll just speed through towards the end, and we'll see how it looks at the end. So this is now 300 times that I've done it, and you can see it's actually getting quite stretchy. It's still ripping a bit once you get it up there. So I'm going to do at least another 100 stretching folds, but you can sort of see that window pane that we're kind of looking for. That means that the glutens are really developing in there. And you'll notice that you really need to keep it moving. Once you let it sit for a while, it starts to adhere to the table, so keeping it moving is really key to letting it not stick to the table. So this is now 350, and you'll notice what happens as well is that you'll get like air bubbles that start appearing at the top, and that's as you're folding them in, those sort of bubbles will start appearing, and that's actually really good. That means that there's air going into it as well, which is great for when it actually bulk ferments when we're done with this. So another 50 to go. So this is 400 times now. Usually I go to 500, but I feel that this is actually okay. As you can see, the window pane effect really is there. You can sort of see it's a little bit translucent. You can almost see through it if you go and look up against, from that side against the light. And that's really what you're after. You're after that texture, that sort of, the gluten is all sort of managed to develop. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but anyway, that's, you know, you create that elasticity. Then at this point, you're basically ready to let it go to sleep for 3 hours. So I just dump it back in that bowl. Just dump it in, you'll see how it looks. It looks very stretchy, like this. It's not necessarily in a perfect shape, but that's fine, that'll all come later. So we take that, again, we cover it with the same wet towel. We throw that back in the oven. Now I've still got the oven light on, and basically I leave it for 3 hours. What I found in the past, if I leave it for 3 hours with the light on, that it tends to overproof after 3 hours. So after about 2 hours, I'm actually going to switch the light off in the oven so it starts cooling down a bit. Because the internal temperature of the dough actually gets quite warm. When you pick it up, you can actually feel it. So for 2 hours, I'll leave it in there with the light on, and then an hour with the light off, so it actually just cools down to normal room temperature. All right, so we'll be back in about 3 hours then, when that's ready, and then I'll show you the first shaping, and then the final shaping after that, all right? Catch you later, bye-bye.